आवाज़ बुलंद तर सलावत। أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين منتجبين المنتخبين المظلومين الغرر الميامين سيما بقية الله في الأراضين وحجته على الخلائق أجمعين سيدنا وإمام زماننا وصاحب نعمتنا وولي الأمرنا مهدي هذه الأمة وطؤوس أهل الجنة الحجة ابن الحسن العسكري فداه وارواح العالمين صلوات. Inshallah, I'd like to start today's lecture just by saying a statement that obviously tomorrow, this is going to be the last lecture for tomorrow is the day of Ashura, and then we have Sham Ghariba, and after that obviously there is no more lectures. So I just want to take this opportunity firstly to say thank you to the Idara of Hussainia, Bradford, for giving me the honor to be able to recite in front of you for these past 10 nights. Inshallah, you have found the lectures useful. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses the community here, different races, different ethnicities, backgrounds. And obviously everybody has been attending. So inshallah, firstly, may Allah accept our Azadari for this past 9 to 10 nights. But also if I've said anything that hurt anybody, if I've said anything that has offended anybody, I ask you in the name of Abba Abdullah to please forgive me. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses this community with health, wealth and prosperity. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we all know that our 12th Imam, the leader of our time, went into two occultations. Thank you. Went into two occultations. We know that the first occultation that our Imam went into was known as Ghaibat-e Sughra, and the second occultation that our Imam went into was known as Ghaibat-e Kubra. So just a short story on the Imam. We have that when the Imam was in Ghaibat-e Sughra, when our Imam was in his minor occultation, he elected representatives and he said, look, if anybody has any questions, if anybody needs any guidance or assistance, I physically won't be in front of you. So in order to reach me, in order to get my guidance, in order to get my answers to your questions, ask these four. And after these four have passed away, after these four have left this world, then the doors of connecting with me on an obvious open terms will close. And Ghaibat al-Kubra will begin. So they say that when three of the representatives had died and there was only one left, a group of Muslims got together to that third or fourth representative and they said, look, you're the last representative, right? You're at an old age. If you were to die, our link with our Imam will finish. Our link with our Imam will be cut off. How many soldiers does the Imam require? 313, right? Okay. 313 of us will get together and say to the Imam, come out of his occultation, let's wage a war. Let's start his hukumat, let's start his rule. 313 of us are ready, we will fight. So the representative goes to the Imam and he says, look, Yabna Rasulullah, 313 men have come together and they have a request. What's the request? That you need 313, we have 313. We're ready to fight. Finish your occultation. Come out. Let's rule. So the Imam says, okay, if this is what they want, tell them tomorrow at a certain time to meet me in a certain place. And I will address them. So the guy goes back, gives the message, oh Muslims, you want to see the Imam? You have 313. Meet us tomorrow at this time, at this location. So they all come at the location. And the Imam is on the roof of a house. So houses in the UK are built differently, right? Our roofs are usually triangular. We can't go on top of our roofs. But if you were to look at the houses in Pakistan, for example, or the houses in Iraq, for example, they have open roofs. So you can easily, from inside of the house, go to the roof of your house. But then again, at the same time, you'll notice that there are holes in the corner of your roof so that when the rain comes, there's no flood. So the water can pour out from the holes in the side of your roof and flow down the side of the building. The house was like this. The Imam is on the roof of the house. 313 Muslims are now standing at the bottom of the house. The representative of the Imam, the fourth final representative, is standing next to them. The Imam calls him up. Come to me. So this man leaves, goes upstairs. The Imam says to him, you said to me that these 313 people are willing to fight for me, die for me. They want me to come out of occultation. They are the Shias. They are ready to follow me. They are ready to wage a war. Is this correct? Yes, Ibn Rasul, that's what they're saying. The Imam says, okay, watch this. Let's test them. So the Imam gets a sheep, slaughters the sheep, lets the blood of the sheep pour down the hole in the side of the roof. As these 313 are watching, what do they see? All of a sudden there's blood flowing down the side of the house. What happened? The Imam calls his representative to the roof, and a few minutes later there's blood pouring down the side of the house. The Imam says to his representative, he said, you said to me these people are willing to die for me? These people are willing to go to war with me? Yes, that's what they say. He says, look over the roof now and tell me how many followers are there ready to die for me. So the representative leans over the roof, looks down, not a single person is there. Where are they? They've all dispersed. Why? Because they think that the Imam had killed his representative and poured his blood down the side of the house. So they abandoned their Imam, they left. The Imam turns towards his representatives, and one of the last statements that we have of our Imam that can be widely accepted by all Muslims is that he says, now I will go into my major occultation, Ghaibat Kubra, and I will not come back until when? Until Allah has destined for me to come back. In order for me to come back, I need loyal followers. I need loyal supporters. I need people that will follow me fully. Abu Abdullah had how many? 72 according to some narrations in Karbala. But how many Muslims were at the time? Hundreds and thousands. But out of all those, the Imam said, only these 72 are loyal to me. Shabi Ashur, the Imam said, turn off the lights. Those that want to leave, leave. But not a single one got up, because they were loyal. So the last message of our Imam is what? I will come back as a hujjat on this earth. When? When the followers are loyal enough to support me, and Allah decides when I will return to this world. Followers, Shias, when we think Shia of Ali, inshallah may we all be Shias of Ali, but the actual definition of a Shia is Misam al-Dammar, is Miqdad, is Kambar, is Salman al-Muhammadi. Why? Because they say that one day Misam al-Dammar and Mukhtar al-Thaqafi are in the court of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad la'natullahi alayh. They're in the court, and Misam is doing what? He's praising Imam Ali, just Ali, 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 Ali. Muslims say, why do you always say Ali? Misam was known as the one who would always praise Imam Ali non-stop. So it came to a part where Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad said to Misam al-Dammar, oh Misam, is there anything that we can do that will stop you saying Ali, Ali? Is there anything that I can do that will stop you praising your Amir? He says, yes, there's one thing. What's that? He said, my friend Mukhtar, who's standing next to me, kill him, and I will stop saying Ali, Ali. So Mukhtar turns towards me, saying, what do you mean? Kill me, and then you'll stop. So Misam says, Mukhtar, do you not remember Amir al-Mu'mineen said what? My Imam said that Mukhtar will be the one that will kill Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. The mountains can move from their place, but the words of Ali will always be true. Imam said, you're going to kill him. It's impossible for him to kill you. These were the Shias of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Once they say, our sixth Imam or our fourth Imam, one person comes to the Imam and says, Ibn Rasulullah, I am your Shia, I am your follower, I am your lover, I am your muhib, I am here to follow you. The Imam says, you're here to follow me? Yes. Okay. You know, in our Pakistan and Iraq and, Arab countries, we have a thing called a tandoor, right? Which is what? There's a hole in the ground with a lid. You pick the lid up, there's burning coal. What do? We take roti and naans and we stick them to the side. They cook, you bring them out. So it's a very deep well, so to speak, with a lid on top. The Imam had one in his house. So the Imam says to him, you are my Shia, you are my follower? He said, yes. He goes, jump in there. He says, what? He goes, jump in there. He goes, what's that going to prove? The Imam says, what do you mean, what's it going to prove? You are saying that you are my follower, jump in there. Yeah, but it's hot. I need to think about this. The Imam says, okay, let me tell you the difference. One of the slaves of the Imam, a true Shia, was walking in the house. The Imam calls him, Ji Mola, jump in the tandoor. Ji Mola lifts it up, jumps straight in. The Imam puts the lid back on. Now the Imam is sitting down. The follower is sitting next to the Imam. He's looking at the Imam. He's looking at the tandoor. He's looking at the Imam. He's thinking, yeah, this guy's probably burning. But the Imam is relaxed. So tell me, you are from Iran? How is Iran? Because Imam, forget Iran. The Imam says, oh, you're worried about him. Oh, go check him. See what he's doing. So he lifts up the lid of the tandoor, and the follower of this Imam was sitting comfortably around fire. Nothing was touching him. This isn't a shock. Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran says what? Namrud threw Ibrahim in fire, but the fire didn't burn him. This isn't the first time it's happened. But what? The Imam says, I need followers like this. Followers who obey me. Followers who don't question me. When our Prophet said to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, I need you to sleep in my bed to aid my escape. Imam Ali didn't turn around and say, Ya Rasulullah, why? Why should I sleep in your bed? Will I live to see tomorrow? But what's the reason for me sleeping in your bed? No. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, Ya Rasulullah, if I sleep in your bed, will your life be saved? Yes, Ya Ali, it will. I accept. So this is the story. This is the narration of our 12th Imam that he said, I will only come back when I have enough loyal supporters and followers like Abu Abdullah had in Karbala. Today's topic is what? It's a topic that's been requested as well. So a few brothers have asked me to do this topic. So inshallah I will do this topic. Is what? Azadari, Matam, self-beating, self-flagellation from the verses of the Quran and Hadith. Right? It's Muharram. You've all been asked, why do you hit yourselves? Islam says have patience. Islam says don't harm your body. Islam says don't ruin the image of my religion. So why do you guys every year get together, cry, hit your chests, cut your heads open with swords, slash your backs? Is this an Islamic practice or is it a pagan practice? Why do you do this? So today's purpose and point of the lecture is not for me to convince you to do it, right? If you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it, right? My point is not to convince you. My point is to prove to you that our religion, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt and the prophets of Allah have allowed self-harm, have allowed self-flagellation. Whether you want to do it or not, that's entirely up to yourselves. So we begin with the Quranic verse in what? Quran chapter 4, which is known as Surah An-Nisa, verse 148. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, Allah does not love those that should noise evil, should proclaim, wail, cry, and speak about evil acts. Illa, except. When? Except where dhulm has been done. When our Imams were asked, what does Allah mean by dhulm? Which dhulm can you openly express grief on, but everything else you are not allowed to express grief on? What is it? The Imam says the biggest dhulm that was done in history was Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. This verse was revealed for our Imam, that you cannot cry, wail, lament for any injustice that has been done except where dhulm has been done, and that dhulm is the dhulm that was done to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. So from the onset, are you allowed to cry? Yes. My first lecture I mentioned a point, inshallah I'd like to mention it again, is what? They say that you should only cry for 3 days. You've probably heard this. Don't cry more than 3 days. That's it. That's all you need to do. It's been 1400 years since Karbala. Why do you guys still cry? Right? Somebody came to our Imam once, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, Muhammad, and they said, "Oh grandson of the Prophet, it's Muharram. You are crying, you are lamenting, you are sitting on the floor. But Karbala was so long ago, so many hundreds and years ago. Why are you still crying for Abu Abdullah? Why?" So Imam al-Rida says what? Alayhi salam says what? He says, we will forever mourn and practice and remember Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Why? Because if we don't, the Muslims will forget Karbala the way they have forgotten Ghadir. Muslims today try to twist Ghadir, right? But you can't twist the story of Abu Abdullah, right? 1,444 years later, we're all here. We are all here. We're all present. Why? Because we are remembering the Imam. Okay, you should only cry for 3 days. That's it. You shouldn't cry for more than that. Okay. Surah Yusuf in the Quran. Nabi Yaqub was separated from Nabi Yusuf. How long? Many years. What did Nabi Yaqub do? He cried so much that Allah says in Surah Yusuf in the Quran that the black in his eyes turned white. Do you know anybody in history that has cried that much that they've become blind? No. This is a prophet of God. Why didn't Allah say, Yaqub alayhi salam, your son is away from you. He's not dead. He's alive. But just because your son is not in front of you, you cry so much. Why didn't Allah say, Nabi Yaqub, only cry for 3 days and then stop. Don't excessively cry. For years and years and years our prophet cried until he became blind. So crying, wailing is one thing. Hitting yourselves. Where is that from? Right? Self-harm, beating yourself. Where is that? Again, we begin with the Quran. The Prophet left us the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. Every single practice that the Shias have today can be proven from the Quran. Everything that we have. Why? Our religion derives from the Quran. So Matam, Azadari from the Quran, of course. Chapter 51, Surah Zariyat, verse 29. What happened? Nabi Ibrahim's wife, Sarah, was told that she was going to give birth to a boy. She was really old. So in her state of grief, she began to slap her face, right? In a state of grief. And we have two answers to this. But she slapped her face in the state of grief. First point, when something happens in front of a prophet, it's wajib on that prophet to stop you if that act is forbidden. Because he's a guide. If a prophet is silent when you do something, it means what? It means that that prophet does not condemn you, he allows you. Furthermore, it becomes a sunnat of that prophet if he doesn't stop you. Ibrahim, your wife is slapping her face and you're not doing anything. Why? Because it was allowed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrated this in his holy book. I didn't say, but what she did was wrong. Didn't condemn her for her actions. So the wife of Ibrahim is slapping her face. Some people try to translate the verses. She didn't slap her face. She just gently tapped her face. Okay. What's the Arabic word? Fasakkat. Fasakkat in Arabic is to strike, to slap harshly. She didn't tap her face. She began to viciously slap herself. Where's this been narrated? That she did this? I've told you the Quran. But for some people that's not enough. They don't accept it. So Quran is the word of Allah. Ibrahim's wife Sarah slapped her face. Fasakkat, viciously. Fir bhi hadith chahiye, fine. Sahih Muslim, book 30, hadith number 5851. Says that the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Sarah, slapped her face viciously when she was in grief. So what does that mean? It means that when you are in the state of grief, if you are to hit yourself, if you are to harm yourself, it's the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. It's a practice done by prophets alayhimus salam. It's an act that Allah narrated in his book and didn't condemn it. And I think the biggest thing for them is Sahih Muslim really clear. It's in there. So this was the two verses that I wanted to present before you. One, where dhulm has been done, you can grieve. Crying, Nabi Yaqub. Hitting yourself, the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the origins of hitting selves, the origin of zanjir, tatbir, mat, where did this begin? A few hundred years ago, some people can question, but where did these practices really originate from? Bihar al-Anwar, one of our books, narrated by Allama Bakir Majlisi, has a narration in Bihar in which he states that when Sayyidah Zainab's caravan arrived in the city of Kufa, she got out or off her camel, she saw the head of Abba Abdullah al-Hussein raised on a spear. So she saw a metal pole next to her, she smacked her head against the pole and blood began coming from her sacred head. You think the daughter of Ali is going to do something that your religion doesn't allow? You think the Ma'soom Imams and Ahlul Bayt, if it wasn't allowed, why would the daughter of Amirul Mu'mineen do this? Does anybody have the audacity today to say what she did was wrong? No. First example. Another example. Our fourth Imam, once somebody comes to him and tells him about a dream that he had. And in that dream, he asks the Imam to interpret that dream. Our fourth Imam, Sayyid al-Sajideen, when translating this dream to his friend and companion, was in so much grief that the book says he smacked his head against the wall and it began to bleed. This isn't something that we've just created one day and we've just started hitting ourselves for the fun of it. The Quran has allowed it. The Hadiths have narrated it. So, in tonight's lecture, let's go through a few prophets. Let's go through a few Imams. Let's go through a few companions. And in fact, let's even talk about the wife of the Prophet and see how many people did Matam, how many people caused blood to come out, how many people self-harmed. Right? Like I said, the purpose of tonight's lecture is just to prove to you that self-harm in our religion is allowed through Quran, Hadith and Sunnah. Whether you do it or not is a completely different choice. We begin with Nabi Adam, the father of mankind. When Nabi Adam was separated from his wife, and when he had received news that his son had been killed, he was in a lot of grief. He cried for many, many years. Nabi Adam cried so much so that it has been narrated in Ma'arij al-Nabuwa, chapter 1, page 248. What does it say? The exact words. Nabi Adam alayhi salam used to smash his hands onto his knees so hard that you could see the bone from his thigh. Something that isn't allowed in your religion. How hard do you have to slap your thigh that the bone becomes visible? So the first prophet Allah sent cried for his sons and self-harmed in his grief, and the books of history have narrated it. Second, what about our prophet? Has our prophet ever done anything like this? Has Rasulullah ever striked his chest, his face, his head, or his thighs? Let's see. 4 references. Where? Sahih Bukhari, volume 9, book 92, hadith number 446. Sunan al-Nasai, volume 3, page 305. Sahih Muslim, volume 1, page 291. And the Sunan of Abu Anwa, volume 2, page 292. 4 references. What do they say? All 4 of them say that after the battle of Uhud, when the uncle of the Prophet, Hazrat Hamza alayhi salam, was killed, the Prophet used to strike his thigh with his hand continuously. So first Nabi Adam, now we've got Rasulullah. Ya Rasulullah, you bought this religion. The infallibility of the Imams is a question that some may not believe, but every Muslim believes that the Prophet was infallible. The Prophet didn't make mistakes. The Prophet lived his life pure perfection. Well, 4 of your books here are saying that the Prophet used to strike his thigh in grief of losing his uncle Hamza. Again, Ibn Hajar Asqalani in his book Fath al-Bari, volume 3, page 11 says what? Says that the Prophet striking his thighs over the grief of his uncle Hamza alayhi salam was what? His words are, was the permissibility of a man striking himself. The Prophet striking has become the sunnat of this Prophet. So what? The Prophet struck his thighs. Who else? What about Amir al-Mu'mineen? Did Imam Ali ever do Matam? Did Imam Ali ever grieve? Did Amir al-Mu'mineen ever slap his thighs or his chest? Tofa Ithna Ashari, a book in Urdu, is a book that was written by non-Shias to attack Shias, right? This book was published in Karachi. It's called Tofa Ithna Ashari. So those who believe in 12 Imams, here's a gift for you, right? We are now using that same book that they've gifted to us to prove to you that self-harm is allowed. The scholars of Iran have already refuted this book anyway, but it's called Tofa Ithna Ashari. Majority here can read Urdu. I recommend you read it. Tofa Ithna Ashari, page 523 says what? Says that when Amir al-Mu'mineen lost his beloved wife, Sayyida Fatima, he used to strike his thighs repeatedly after death. Okay, so Ibrahim's wife is slapping herself. Our Rasul, peace and blessings on him and his family, is striking himself. Nabi Adam is striking himself. Nabi Yaqub is crying continuously for the loss of what? Separation of his son. Imam Ali, on hearing the grief of his wife leaving this world, is striking his thighs. Next question, did any of the Sahaba ever do this? Right? Right? You may not believe in Imam Ali, you may not take the words of Nabi Adam, Nabi Ibrahim, you may not even take the words of Allah. Lekin Toheen Sahaba, nana nahi si bardasht karna. These were the followers of the Prophet. They were the followers and the companions of the Prophet. Imam Hussain says on the day of Ashura, I had companions even my grandfather didn't have. My followers, my ashab, were greater than the ashab of my Prophet. Have they ever done anything like this? Musnad Abu Auna, volume 2, page 141. Sunan al-Nasai, volume 3, page 12. Sunan Abu Dawood, volume 1, page 244 says what? Says that the companions of the Prophet after the battle of Uhud used to strike their chests and their thighs in grief of the loss that they suffered from Badr and Uhud. Chalo Anbiya nu to chhaddo. The companions are now doing it. Where do you take your religion from? The companions, right? Adalat Sahaba. They were all just. They were all right. They were all true. Four rightly guided. So the rightly guided are now slapping their thighs and their chests in grief. And you have a problem when we cry for Aba Abdullah al-Hussein? Okay. Next, the second Caliph of Islam. Has he ever done anything like this? Kanzul of Mal, volume 8, page 117. It's an English lecture, but I wish I could read in Punjabi sometimes. Says what? Says that he placed his hands on his head and he used to cry and scream over the loss of his friend. The second Caliph has lost a friend and he's hitting himself and crying, but we lose the grandson of the Prophet and you have an objection when we hit ourselves? Next, the wife of the Prophet. Like I said yesterday, Adda deen tusi kitho lende ho? Not from the Prophet, not from the Sahab, from the wife of the Prophet. Has the wife of the Prophet ever done this? Yes. Where? Tarikh Tabri, volume 9, page 183. Ibn Kathir in Al-Bidayah wal Nihaya, volume 5, page 420. What does it say? It says that after the Prophet had departed this world, his wife Aisha used to slap her chest and her face in grief over the loss of Rasulullah. Over grief and loss of Rasulullah. When the third Caliph died, his wife and his daughter used to slap themselves over the grief of the loss of the third Caliph. So there's many examples. One more and then inshallah we'll end. Awais al-Qarni. Everybody knows the story of Awais. I left it to last. Awais al-Qarni was who? He was one of the companions of the Prophet and Amirul Mu'mineen. But unfortunately, Awais al-Qarni never saw the Prophet in his life, right? Awais loved Rasulullah so much, right? But his mother said to him that I'm ill and you have to stay here and look after me. So every day he'd be like, mother, please, let me just go and visit Rasulullah just once. No. I'm old, I'm sick, you have to look after me. So one day his mom said, look, Awais, I'll give you permission. You can go, you can visit the Prophet, and then you can come back. If he's not there, then you have to come back straight away. He says, okay. To the city of Medina, excited, happy. I'm finally going to meet my Prophet. I've never seen him before. I love him, but I've never met him. Awais arrives into Medina, the Prophet is away. His mom told him, you have to come back. You have to respect the words of your mother. So he was sad, so he left. Went where? Back home. What did the Prophet do? The Prophet arrives into the city of Medina and he says, what? He says, there's a beautiful smell coming from Medina. What is this? Oh Rasulullah, a man came to visit you today. Who? He said, Awais al-Qarni, but unfortunately you weren't here. And his mom said, if the Prophet isn't there, go back. He's gone. So the Prophet says, if any of you see Awais, my brother Awais, give him my salam. Rasulullah is saying, give Awais my salam. So now Awais must be a great companion, right? Awais must be a lovely companion. What did Awais do? In the battle of Uhud, when Rasulullah was struck, he was struck so hard that one of his tooth fell out of his mouth. The Prophet then fell unconscious. When the Prophet fell unconscious, the Muslims began a rumor saying, what? Rasulullah has died. Run. Nicolito, run. The Prophet has died. Amir al-Mu'mineen was one of the only ones that remained loyal with the Prophet, to the extent that Jibreel had to come down and say, La fata illa Ali wa la sayfa illa dhul fiqar. There is no brave youth like Ali, there is no sword like the dhul fiqar. But when Awais heard, not seen, heard, that my beloved messenger was struck on the mouth and caused pain and fell unconscious, Awais picked up a brick. What did he do? He smashed one of his teeth. The moment he smashed one of his teeth, he thought to himself, hold on, what if it was this tooth that fell from the Prophet and not this tooth? So he smashed this one. Wait, what if it was the bottom? Smashed that one. What about the side? To the extent that the hadith that I narrated says he smashed all of his teeth. If causing pain to yourself, self-inflicting harm, blood being released, if this wasn't allowed, Awais al-Qarni is doing this. Who is Awais? Rasulullah says, give my brother Awais my salam. Final point, Tatbir and the hitting of the head with the swords. Just remembered one more narration, is what they say that one of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen by the name of Sahsa bin Suhan, we mentioned him a few nights ago, Sahsa bin Suhan, he was in the city of Bahrain. Imam Hussein wrote him a letter, "Ya Sahsa, come to Karbala, I need your help." So Sahsa leaves Bahrain to come to Karbala, but unfortunately he arrives in Karbala 9 days after the day of Ashura. So Sahsa arrives on the 19th of Muharram. When he gets there, he sees the Bani Asad tribe that used to live there, and he used to say, "Where is Hussein?" So they say, "Oh Sahsa, you are too late. Hussein has been killed." Where is the grave? Right there. So Sahsa and his companions go to the grave of Abu Abdullah. When they arrive at the grave, the narration says that Sahsa and his companions took out their swords and began striking their heads with their swords until blood began pouring down their face. So this self-flagellation, zanjir, tatbir, this didn't begin thousands and thousands and years after Karbala. 9 days after the day of Ashura, there are people doing it. So in conclusion, are we allowed? Yes. Are we allowed to strike? Yes. Are we allowed to beat that? Yes. Are you allowed to hit yourselves with swords? Yes. Are you allowed to use zanjir? Yes. Whether you do or whether you don't, that's entirely up to yourself. There are some Maraja that say you shouldn't do it. There are some Maraja that say we are silent on the issue. And there are even some Maraja that say it's mustahab to do it. Ayatollah Sheikh Bashir Hussain al-Najafi, Ayatollah Syed al-Hakim, Ayatollah Sheikh Ishaq Fayaz, Ayatollah Ruhani, Ayatollah Wahid Khurasani, all 5, and Ayatollah Sadiq Shirazi, all 6 of these say it is mustahab to release blood on the 10th of Muharram. So it's not that our scholars don't allow it, some do, some don't, some are silent. Tonight we would like to remember who? Akhiq al-Hussein, Abul Fadl al-Abbas. Inshallah, bear with me tonight, for the Masayib of Abbas is a difficult Masayib for Banin to hear. It's a difficult Masayib for Sayyidah Fatima to hear. They say on the 9th of Muharram, like tonight, the eve of Ashura, Sayyidah Zainab comes to Abul Fadl al-Abbas and she says, "Oh Abbas, can I tell you a story?" He says, "Of course." She says, "Abbas, you know, when our mother Fatima had passed away, years later, Amir al-Mu'mineen came to his brother Aqil, the father of Muslim ibn Aqil, and he said, Aqil, I want you to find me a woman from a tribe that is known for their bravery, that is known for their valor, that is known for their courage." So Aqil says, "Ya Ali, why?" He says that so that I may produce a son from her that will help my brother Hussein. When Abul Fadl Abbas came into this world, Amir al-Mu'mineen held him and he began kissing the hands of Abbas and he began to cry. Banin would say, "Ya Ali, you are crying. Is there something wrong with Abbas? Is there something wrong with his hands?" Amir al-Mu'mineen said, "No, Banin, this child is perfect. But this child is the dua of Zahra and his only purpose is the day of Ashura. Abbas, you were created for tomorrow." Sayyidah Zainab is saying to her brother, "You are created for tomorrow. Tomorrow is your day." So they say that once all the companions had fought and the Ahlul Bayt were now fighting, when all of the Ahlul Bayt were done, when Abbas saw the death toll rising, he stood up and ordered his brothers to enter the battlefield. His brothers fought and were killed. It was now time for Abbas himself to enter the battle. He came to Imam Hussein seeking permission to go fight. He said to the Imam, "Oh my brother Hussein, oh my master Hussein," never called him brother. "Oh my master Hussein, can you please give me permission to go and fight?" Imam Hussein would begin to cry. Tears filled the eyes of Hussein. He would say what? He would say, "Akhi anta hamilul liwa'i." "Oh my brother, you are the bearer of my flag. If you die, my entire army will collapse and my enemies will rejoice." Abbas replied back by saying, "Oh Hussein, oh Master Sayyidi, I am tired of these hypocrites. I cannot stand the sounds of the children crying out of thirst. Their cries of al-atash is killing me." When Imam Hussein saw Abbas adamant about fighting, he said to him, "My brother, in kana wala bud fadlu bliha ula'il atfal sharbatam min al-ma." Oh Abbas, if you must, then go and get some water for these thirsty children. Abbas immediately mounts his horse. As he's about to leave to go towards the battlefield, Abul Fadl al-Abbas did not say goodbye to Sayyidah Zainab. Abul Fadl al-Abbas did not say goodbye to Kulthum. Why? Because Abbas wasn't going to fight. They expected Abbas to come back. Abbas was only going to get water. He wasn't going to fight. So he didn't say goodbye to his sisters. All of a sudden, Abul Fadl Abbas enters into the battlefield. He arrives at the river of Furat. As Abbas arrives, he disperses the enemy. He goes into the river. At this moment, Abul Fadl Abbas extends his hands into the river of Furat. He picks up the water, the cold water of the Euphrates. He brings it close towards his lips. He feels the coolness of the water. Some people from the stage say that Abbas wanted to drink, then he remembered the thirst of Hussein. I say no. When did Abbas ever forget the thirst of Hussein? For him to remember the thirst of Hussein, Abbas only remembered Hussein. Imam Zain al-Abidin says that at this moment, when Abul Fadl Abbas had arrived, his heart was burning like charcoal. Nobody would have blamed Abbas if he took a sip to drink. But what did Abul Fadl Abbas do? The enemies are looking. What's Abbas going to do? All of a sudden, Abul Fadl Abbas throws the water back into the river and he begins to fill his container. Then Abul Fadl Abbas begins to scold himself. What does he say? He says, Ya nafs min ba'dil Hussein huni wa ba'dahu ma kunti aw takuni hadha Husaynun waridul manuni wa tashrabina barid al-ma'ini. Abbas says, how can I drink when Hussein is still thirsty? Remember this phrase, how can I drink when Hussein is still thirsty? Because at the end, I'm going to mention this again. So what does Abbas do? He fills the container. He mounts his horse. He's thinking of Sakina. He's going towards the camp. All of a sudden, Umar ibn Sa'ad says, if the water reaches the camp of Hussein, they will not spare any one of us. So what? Strike Abbas. So Hakim ibn Tufail and Zayd ibn al-Raqad, may Allah's lanat be on both of these, were hiding behind palm trees, awaiting for Abbas to approach. Zayd struck Abbas on his right arm, immediately severing it off. Abbas called out, Wallah inka tahtamu yamini, inni ohami abadan an dini, wa an imamin sadiq al-yakini, sibt al-nabiy al-tahir al-amini. He then put the container in his left arm until Hakim came out and severed the left arm of Abbas as well. Abbas called out, Ya nafsula takshay min al-kuffari. Abbas, do not fear the disbelievers. You are on the true path, O Abbas. At this moment, Abbas is now holding the water skin with his teeth as he's going back towards the camp of Hussein. They fire 300 arrows towards Abul Fadl al-Abbas. But Abbas says, out of those 300 arrows, only 3 arrows hurt me the most. Which ones, Ya Abbas? He says, the first arrow, fi aini, the arrow that hit me in my eye. He says, that hurt me. The second one, fi sadri, the arrow that pierced my heart. But Abbas says the arrow that hurt me the most was which arrow? He says it was the third arrow that pierced the water skin as the water began flowing on the grounds of Karbala. Abul Fadl Abbas is what? He was perplexed. He didn't know what to do. I can't go to the camp and have no water. I can't go back to the river. I have no arms. What am I going to say to Sakina? As Abbas is thinking about this, he wants to remove the arrow from his eye, but he doesn't have any hands. How does Abbas remove the arrow? The Muqs of the Maqtal say that Abul Fadl Abbas leaned down to use his knees to remove the arrow from his eye. When Abbas leant down, his helmet fell. When the helmet of Abul Fadl Abbas fell onto the ground, he has nothing to protect his head. All of a sudden, one of the enemy members comes forward. He strikes a blow with a metal pole on the head of Abul Fadl Abbas to such an extent that Abbas falls off his horse. And this is the moment we say what? We say that whenever a man falls from the horse, how does he shield that fall? He uses his hands. Abbas has no hands. So how does Abbas fall? He falls onto his face. When Abul Fadl Abbas fell for the first time in his life, Sayyidi, Mawlai, Aba Abdullah, but for the first time in his life, Abul Fadl Abbas said what? He said, Akhi adrik akhak. Oh brother, come and rescue your brother. At that moment, Aba Abdullah says what? In kathara dhahri, my back has now been broken with your fall, O Abbas. I, Hussein, cannot walk straight. At that moment, Imam Hussein arrives at the body of Abul Fadl Abbas. He has an arrow in one eye. He has what? Blood in the other eye. As he hears footsteps, Abbas doesn't know who's coming. So Abul Fadl Abbas says, oh man, whoever you are, don't cut my head off. Why? Until my master Hussein arrives first. Then you can kill me. At this moment, Imam Hussein comes, he sits down onto the ground, he takes the head of Abbas, he says, oh my brother Abbas, it is me, your brother Hussein, I am here. He says, Aba Abdullah, when I was born, the first person I saw was you. Now that I am leaving, I can't see you. If you're not going to cry tonight, when are you going to cry? The veils of Zainab are going to be leaving right now. What did he say? I can't see you, oh my brother. So Abu Abdullah said, why? He says, there's an arrow in one eye. There's a blood in one eye. Abu Abdullah removes the blood. Abbas looks at Abu Abdullah. He offers his final salams. Imam Hussain says, Abbas, do you have any final requests? Do you have any last hajat? He said, yes. What is that? He says, all the bodies that you used to pick up from the battlefield, you used to take them back to the camp. Oh, Abu Abdullah, I beg you, please don't take my body back to the camp. Why? I am ashamed. Why are you ashamed, Abbas? He says, because Sakina asked for water. I was not able to provide that water. Leave me here. So Abu Abdullah leaves the body of Abbas. He goes back towards where the tents. Sakina is now looking. What does she see? She sees the flag, the alam of Abbas coming. So she gathers all the children together. She says, come, 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 my uncle Abbas is coming. He's going to quench our thirst. But as Imam Hussain was coming closer, it wasn't Abul Fadl Abbas, it was Abu Abdullah al-Hussain. So Sakina begins to cry. She says, oh my father, where is my Ammi Abbas? Where is my uncle Abbas? Abu Abdullah didn't say anything. Sakina says something that breaks our heart. She says, oh father, is my uncle gone because I asked for water? Is he gone because of me? Am I the reason? I promise I will never ask for water again. Just give me my uncle back. The Imam says nothing. Sayyida Zainab comes out. Oh, brother Hussein, where is Abbas? The Imam says nothing. He walks to the tents of Abbas. What does he do? There's a pillar, a pole that's holding up the tent of Abbas. Imam Hussein grabs the pole. He removes it. The tent collapses. This is his way of saying what? This is his way of saying Abbas is gone. When Ali Akbar died, the women said, Wa Akbara. When Qasim died, they said, Wa Qasima. When Muhammad died, they said, Wa Auna wa Muhammada. But when Abul Fadl Abbas died, they didn't say Wa Abbasa. No, what did they say? They say Wa Hijaba. Our hijab is now gone. They say that whenever, and inshallah the final statement is what? They say that whenever a martyr in Karbala died, Rasulullah and Imam Ali would bring them water. Where? From the pools of Kauthar. Right? Ali Akbar said what? Hada Jaddi Rasulullah. My grandfather is here. He's given me water. Whenever somebody dies, they drink water. Why do we say that when it comes to Wafa, Rabbe Wafa is Abul Fadl Abbas? Why did he have this title? They say that Rasulullah and Amirul Mu'mineen came to Abul Fadl Abbas. They said, oh Abbas, now that you have received martyrdom, now that you have died, oh Abbas, take a sip of water. Abbas would look towards Rasulullah. He would say, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Nafs, min ba'dil Hussaini huni. I, Abbas, cannot drink while Hussein is still thirsty. Even though I have left this world, I will not drink until Abu Abdullah comes to heaven with me. Ala lanatullahi ila al-qawmi al-zalimin wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayyamun kalabiyan kalibun salawat.